The Mafia boss thought he was untouchable until the maid slipped a note into his hand. "Your men are setting you up today." What happens next could change everything. Loyalty, betrayal, and survival all hang by a thread. Thank you for sticking around with me, and welcome back, my wonderful story family. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now, back to the story. Chicago had a way of pressing on a person's chest, making every breath feel like a small act of rebellion. Tasha Monroe knew this better than most. She felt it every morning as she walked through the shimmering lobby of the Costa Tower. Sleek marble, mirrored elevators, and security guards with eyes that scanned like they were born suspicious. It was a building that didn't just house power. It swallowed it whole. And she, dressed in her crisp black and white Maid uniform with a neat cap perched above her straight bangs, was the ghost floating through it. Most days, Tasha preferred it that way. But today, something in the air felt wrong. Like the city had woken up on the edge of a knife. In Mateo Costa's penthouse, she moved with her usual quiet efficiency. Dusting, straightening, and observing. People called her invisible. They had no idea how much she saw. Mateo's men were louder this morning. Edgier. Their footsteps clipped too sharply against marble, and their whispers carried tension instead of routine annoyance. And when two of them lingered near the dining room archway, talking in low tones, Tasha froze behind a column, her dusting cloth in hand. "You sure today's the day?" one murmured. "Man, we're past ready. The boss walks into that meeting, and we're done with him. Clean. Easy." The other scoffed. "Nothing's easy with Mateo." "Well, it's happening anyway. And Costa goes down with nobody the wiser." Tasha's hand tightened around the cloth. They weren't joking. They weren't venting. Their voices weren't laced with fear or bravado. They sounded settled. Resolved. She swallowed hard, heart banging against her ribs. Mateo wasn't just any man. He was the most feared crime boss in Chicago. Men kneeled to him. Neighborhoods whispered his name like a prayer or a curse. But today he was a target. And she was the only one who realized it. She needed a plan. Something smart. Something fast. Something that didn't get her killed before she could warn him. Her hands trembled only slightly as she grabbed a blank notepad slip Mateo kept near his bar cart. A simple piece of paper. Harmless. Replaceable. Her message wasn't, "Your men are setting you up today." Her stomach flipped. This note could get her shot. Firing would have been a blessing compared to what the Costa family did to traitors. But she couldn't walk away. Even if Mateo Costa was a criminal, he wasn't the kind of man who deserved betrayal from his own people. Tasha folded the note twice. One breath in. Two. This would either save his life or end hers. Later that afternoon, Mateo arrived at the penthouse wearing a black blazer that framed his tattoos like artwork. His jaw was sharp, his demeanor colder than a Lake Michigan winter. Tasha had seen him angry, tired, irritated, amused, but never unreadable. Today, unreadable was bad. He spotted her instantly. His gaze tracked her like she was a puzzle piece that had suddenly changed shape without permission. "Come with me," he said simply. No explanation. Her pulse thudded as she followed him. Not to his office, not to a meeting room, but out of the tower entirely and into a sleek, private car. She sat stiffly beside him, trying not to study the skull tattoo on his hand resting near his jaw or the distrust simmering behind his eyes. He drove them to a quiet upscale restaurant. Dim lighting, servers dressed like they were part of a secret society, and tables draped in linen so heavy it probably cost more than her monthly rent. And that's where the image in her mind came back to her. The moment frozen forever. Mateo leaned forward, his tattoos dark against his fair skin. His chin rested on a fist marked by a skull glaring up at her. His eyes were sharp, narrowing as she held the folded note in both hands. His voice was low, almost dangerous. "What did you want to give me?" She slid the note across the table. Her fingers brushed the linen. For a second, she wished she were invisible again. Mateo unfolded it. His expression didn't flicker. But his posture changed. Stillness replaced casual tension. Awareness replaced irritation. He read it again, slower this time, as if memorizing each letter. Eventually, he looked up. "Where did you hear this?" "Cleaning," she said softly. "People talk more when they don't think you matter." His gaze was steady. Too steady. "And you're telling me because—" "You pay me," she said. Then quieter. "And you don't deserve what's coming." One of his brows lifted. The faintest, most dangerous hint of amusement tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You think you know what I deserve, Tasha?" She forced herself not to squirm. "I think betrayal is wrong. No matter who it's aimed at." For a heartbeat, he didn't respond. His jaw tensed. His fingers tapped the skull tattoo. His breathing shifted just enough for her to notice. Then, "You realize if you're wrong," he murmured. "You've just stepped into a world you can't step out of." "And if I'm right," she whispered, "you're already in one you can't escape." A slow, grudging respect flickered across his face. This maid, he realized, was not what she seemed. As they left the restaurant, Matteo walked slightly ahead, phone in hand, pretending to check messages, but she saw the tension in his shoulders. The readiness. The suspicion. The city around them felt strange, like the alleys were watching. And that's when Tasha noticed the black SUV parked too neatly across the street. The engine is off. The windows are tinted. The same model she'd seen Costa men use. Her breath caught. "Mr. Costa," she whispered urgently. "Stop." He glanced back. She pointed. The SUV door cracked open, and Tasha saw the glint of a gun barrel. Her voice dropped to a sharp, panicked rasp. "Run." Matteo didn't hesitate. The first bullet sliced the air before she had time to pray, or curse, Chicago's entire infrastructure. Matteo grabbed her arm and pulled her behind the stone pillar outside the restaurant. Shattered glass rained down like deadly confetti. People screamed. Tires screeched. Tasha's chest heaved. She felt her pulse pounding beneath her skin so hard it hurt. "For the record," she gasped, "I did not sign up for this." "You wrote the note." Matteo snapped back. And then he stepped out from cover and fired with terrifying precision. She watched, stunned, not by the violence, but by something else. He never shot without checking where she was. He was protecting her. When the gunfire faded and the traitors lay on the pavement, Matteo turned to her, chest heaving, eyes burning. "Tasha," he said, "you saved my life." "I know," she breathed. "I was there." The corner of his mouth twitched. Not a smile, but close enough to prove he couldn't believe her attitude. She wasn't shaking. Not even a little. He stared at her like she was a riddle wrapped in danger, wrapped in a maid uniform. "Who are you really?" he demanded. Tasha swallowed. "Here it comes. I'm partially a maid." His jaw dropped slightly. Of all the answers in the universe, she had chosen chaos. Inside Matteo's BMW, as he sped them away from the scene, she caught him glancing at her more than the road. And as the adrenaline eased, Tasha realized something terrifying. Her life would never go back to quiet again. But maybe quiet wasn't what she wanted. If you're already rooting for Tasha and not the treacherous snakes who tried to kill Matteo, hit like and subscribe now. Only manipulators and backstabbers scroll past justice. The drive back to the Costa Tower was a blur of city lights and Matteo's jaw flexing hard enough to crack diamonds. Tasha sat stiff in the passenger seat, gripping the edge of the leather seat like it was a lifeboat. She didn't want to stare at him, but her eyes kept drifting. His knuckles tight on the steering wheel, tattoos shifting with every movement, and the slash of tension across his brow. He looked like a man calculating vengeance. And taxes. And probably her funeral arrangements, depending on how the evening went. She cleared her throat softly. "Should you maybe breathe?" He shot her a sideways glare. "Should you maybe stop talking?" "Wow," she muttered. "You're welcome, by the way." He exhaled sharply. Half frustration, half disbelief. Silence settled again. Thick. Heavy. Almost humming. Finally, Matteo parked in the penthouse garage and killed the engine. Rain began to splatter the windshield. the droplets catching neon reflections like tiny explosions. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stared straight ahead as if the steering wheel had personally betrayed him too. Then he turned to her. "Tell me everything you heard this morning," he said quietly. Not a threat. Not an order. A need. She swallowed and repeated the conversation word for word. His eyes stayed on her the entire time, dark and sharp, searching for deception. When she finished, his fingers drummed once on the console. "Those men were with me for 8 years, he murmured. "I'm sorry," she said. He didn't respond. His stare drifted upward, toward nothing, like he was reviewing memories only he could see. Tasha shifted awkwardly. She didn't know the rules of comforting crime lords. Hallmark didn't make cards for this scenario. But she did know betrayal. She'd grown up around it. "People hide things," she said softly. "Sometimes for so long they even convince themselves they're loyal." He gave her a humorless smile. "You sound like someone who's been stabbed in the back before." She shrugged. "Chicago raises all of us with a few scars." Mateo studied her silently. She wished he'd stop doing that. Looking at her like he was trying to decode a language nobody else knew how to speak. "Let's go," he finally said. They stepped out into the cool air and took the private elevator up to the penthouse. The ride was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery. Mateo's reflection glowered in the mirrored walls like a statue carved from storm clouds. Tasha stood beside him, avoiding eye contact with her own reflection, because she looked like someone who had accidentally walked into the wrong movie genre. When the elevator doors opened, Mateo stepped out first, but halted almost instantly. Tasha peeked around his shoulder. The living room lights were on. He never left them on. Mateo's entire body changed. Still but alert, relaxed yet ready. He lifted a hand, signaling her to stay behind him. She didn't argue. She also didn't breathe. He approached the open floor plan with slow, deliberate steps. Tasha followed only far enough to stand behind the wall near the kitchen. Heart thundering. Then she heard a voice. "You're late." Tasha's spine snapped straight. A man sat comfortably in Mateo's leather chair, legs crossed as if he owned it. He wore a charcoal suit and a smile sharp enough to slice through intentions. His hair was dark and slicked back, and his fingers tapped on the glass table rhythmically. Mateo's tone iced over. "Ricci. Bold of you to show up uninvited." Ricci shrugged. "After the little fireworks outside the restaurant? I figured I'd skip the formalities." Mateo's fists clenched at his sides. "What do you want?" "Oh, nothing major," Ricci said lightly. "Just to let you know, some people in your circle think you've gone soft." Tasha stiffened. "Soft? Mateo Costa." That was like calling Lake Michigan a puddle. "Word is," Ricci continued, "you've been distracted lately." Mateo didn't speak. Ricci's smile grew. "Your little maid here, Tasha, is it? Seems to have your undivided attention." Tasha nearly choked on her own oxygen. Mateo's posture tightened. His gaze snapped to her briefly, then back to Ricci with a glare so lethal it could have vaporized steel. "Careful," Mateo said, voice low. "You're walking on a minefield." Ricci spread his hands mockingly. "Relax. I'm not here to hurt her. In fact, I'm curious." His eyes slid toward Tasha. "Do you know how rare it is for anyone to get that close to him without ending up dead?" "Oh," Tasha said with a weak nod. "I'm honored." Her voice cracked on the last word. Ricci laughed. "She's cute. You should keep her." Mateo moved so fast she barely saw it. 1 second he was standing, the next he had Ricci by the collar and slammed him back into the chair. "Say one more word about her," Mateo growled, "and I'll pull out your teeth one by one." Ricci didn't flinch. There's the Mateo I know. The moment stretched. Tense, dangerous, electric. Then Mateo shoved him away and stepped back, chest rising and falling steadily. Ricci fixed his suit, unbothered. "As I said, your men are talking. You should do something about that." "Get out," Mateo said. Ricci smirked his way to the elevator. On his way out, he paused, turning to Tasha with a lazy grin. "Good luck, sweetheart." You're going to need it. The elevator doors slid shut behind him. Tasha exhaled shakily. I don't like him. You shouldn't, Matteo said. He walked toward the glass windows overlooking the skyline, bracing his palms on the ledge. His head bowed slightly. The weight on him wasn't physical. It was loyalty shattering, power shifting, and betrayal cutting deeper than bullets. Tasha took a slow step forward. Then another. Mr. Costa, she said gently. They're not going to stop. Not after today. No, he agreed. They're not. His reflection in the glass looked exhausted. Broken even. Something she'd never seen on him before. They think you're distracted, she said softly. But they're wrong. You're just surrounded by snakes. He didn't turn around, but she felt his attention shift to her. I don't know why you told me the truth, Matteo said quietly. But I'm glad you did. You don't need to know why, she said. Just don't die. It makes the city weird. A brief, reluctant huff of amusement escaped him. She'd made the Mafia boss laugh. Today really was chaos. Suddenly, he turned, stepping closer. Too close. Close enough that the warmth of his body erased the cold from hers. You realize, he murmured, that because you warned me, you're now part of all this. I know. And you can't go back. I know that too. His gaze searched hers, lingering, probing. You're not scared? He asked. Oh, I'm terrified, she admitted. But I've been terrified before. I'm still here. Matteo stared at her like she was something he didn't believe existed, a rare truth in a world built on lies. Get some rest, he said finally. Tomorrow, everything changes. She nodded. But as she turned toward her room, she caught the faintest shift in his expression, something almost protective. And for the first time since the morning, she wondered if fate had dragged her into Matteo's world, or if she was meant to be here all along. Only traitors and silent cowards keep watching without subscribing. But if you're riding with Tasha now, hit that follow, because her next move will shake the entire Costa family. Tasha didn't sleep. She lay in her small penthouse room, really just a glorified storage closet Matteo had cleared for her, staring at the ceiling as Chicago's night rain tapped the windows like a restless drummer. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow looked suspicious. Even the houseplants seemed to be judging her life choices. She sat up with a sigh. This is what I get for trying to help people, she muttered. I should have minded my business. Clean the counters. Wipe the glass. Not warn crime bosses about murder plots. Her pillow gave no sympathy, but she couldn't shake the moment when Matteo stepped close to her, the way his gaze softened just enough for her to see the man under the armor. It was unsettling. Vulnerability didn't suit him. It looked like a wolf forgetting it had fangs. Around 4 a.m., she heard footsteps in the hallway. Not the wrong kind of footsteps. Those had a reckless metallic rhythm. These were firm, precise, and familiar. Matteo. A light knock sounded on her door. Tasha. His voice was low but not sharp. You awake? She scrambled upright, heart leaping to her throat. Yeah. Yes. I'm awake. The door opened a crack, and Matteo peeked inside. He wasn't in his usual black suit but a fitted shirt and dark pants. His hair was still slicked back perfectly, because apparently even stress couldn't defeat whatever demon-level product he used. We need to talk, he said. Never in history had those words led to anything relaxing. Tasha followed him out to the kitchen, where only one lamp glowed, casting warm pools of light across marble counters. Matteo leaned against the island, arms crossed, expression serious. Tonight changes things, he said. She nodded, though she wasn't sure if that was meant to reassure or terrify her. I made some calls, Matteo continued. The men who attacked us at the restaurant weren't freelancers. They were tied directly to someone inside my circle. Tasha's stomach tightened. So the betrayal is worse than you thought. It always is, Matteo muttered. But that's not the problem. He pushed away from the counter and walked toward her until they were only a foot apart. Close enough that she felt the heat of him. Close enough that she wondered how oxygen worked. The problem, he said slowly, is you. Me, she squeaked. You're a witness now. And the men who want me dead. His voice dropped lower. They want you gone too. Her insides flipped. That feels racist. He blinked. What? Just saying. If they wanted to kill me yesterday, that would be rude. Wanting me dead today? Very rude. Matteo stared at her for 2 seconds, then huffed a small laugh despite himself. Tasha, he said, rubbing his jaw, you're unbelievable. Well, thank you, she said. I try. The humor faded, replaced with something heavier. I can't have you walking around unprotected. So from now on, you don't leave this penthouse unless I say so. You don't go anywhere alone. Not even downstairs. Tasha's eyes widened. So I'm grounded. It's called being protected. Feels like being grounded. He gave her a look. You want to live, yes? Preferably, she agreed. Then do as I say. His authority pressed against her like a physical weight, but beneath it, she sensed one thing stronger than control. Fear. Not of her. For her. She exhaled slowly. Okay. Fine. I'll stay inside. He nodded, satisfied. But before he could turn away, she caught something in his posture, a tension that hadn't been there before. His gaze lingered on her, searching, calculating something he hadn't yet spoken aloud. What is it? She asked. There's one more thing. He stepped closer again, and Tasha instinctively backed up until the counter caught her hips. Her heart jumped. Matteo wasn't touching her, but the air between them had changed. Warm, electric, and dangerously aware. When Ricci said you were a distraction, Matteo said quietly, I didn't like it. That I'm a distraction, she whispered. That he noticed you. Her heartbeat stumbled. He wasn't saying it outright, but she understood. In Matteo's world, attention was a weapon. And Ricci noticing her wasn't harmless. It was a threat. A signal. A claim. So what does that mean? She asked, breath unsteady. Matteo looked directly into her eyes. It means you stay close. To me. Her chest tightened. I'm Matteo, I'm just a maid. No, he interrupted softly. You were a maid yesterday. Today you're something else. The tension between them sharpened, humming with something neither of them dared name. Tasha felt the weight of his stare melt into her skin, felt the heat rise to her cheeks, and felt the world narrow down to just the two of them. Then, a sudden boom rattled the entire penthouse. Tasha jumped back with a yelp. Matteo's expression snapped from gentle to lethal in less than a second. He grabbed her wrist with one hand and reached for the gun hidden beneath the counter with the other. Behind me, he commanded. No argument there. Another crash erupted, this time from the balcony side of the penthouse. Glass shattered. Wind howled. Shouts echoed. They were under attack. Matteo dragged her behind him as he moved toward the living room. Gun raised, posture deadly. Shadows moved across the broken glass. Men climbed inside. Masked, armed, and coordinated. A hit squad. Tasha clutched Matteo's jacket, heart ricocheting like a runaway drum. Oh my God, she whispered, voice trembling. They're here, they're actually here. I see them, Matteo said, voice icy calm. Stay down. Gunfire ripped through the room. Matteo fired back with brutal precision, each shot controlled and intentional. Tasha ducked behind the couch, hands shaking so hard she could barely stay upright. The windows exploded. Furniture splintered. Alarms blared. Matteo fought like a man who refused to die. And then, one of the attackers broke off from the others and sprinted toward Tasha. She froze. He raised his gun. Matteo roared her name, and in an instant that shattered everything, Tasha grabbed the nearest thing she could find, a heavy crystal wine decanter. She swung it with every ounce of strength in her body. Crack. The man collapsed instantly. Matteo stared for half a second, stunned. Tasha, he breathed. What the hell? But he couldn't finish. Because when the last attacker fell, and the silence settled, Tasha realized something chilling. One of the bodies, the one Matteo hadn't shot, had a tattoo she recognized. She had cleaned that tattoo. In this penthouse. It wasn't an outsider. It wasn't a rival family. It was someone on Matteo's payroll. Someone he trusted. Somebody who had eaten breakfast in the same kitchen. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Matteo, one of your own men tried to kill me." Matteo's face drained of color. And for the first time tonight, he looked truly afraid. Of what this meant. Of what came next. Of those who were plotting in the shadows. If your heart is racing, imagine how Matteo feels. Don't blink now. Hit follow because the betrayal coming next is bigger, darker, and aimed right at Tasha. The penthouse looked like a crime scene from a movie. Shattered glass everywhere, bullet holes in the walls, overturned chairs, and a dead man with a familiar tattoo sprawled on Matteo's imported rug. Tasha's breath came in shuddering waves as she stared at the body. Not because she'd never seen a dead man before. Chicago had introduced her to plenty of life lessons early, but because she recognized him. The tattoo on his forearm was a snarling wolf, inked in dark blue. She'd seen it last week when he'd asked her for more coffee. He'd smiled at her, thanked her, told her she made the strongest brew in the whole building. He'd planned to kill her. Matteo knelt beside the body, his jaw set like stone. His eyes scanned the attacker's pockets, expression darkening with every second. Tasha didn't have to ask what he was looking for. Matteo Costa never left a question unanswered, even if he hated the truth waiting at the bottom. He pulled out a burner phone and examined the last text. His grip tightened. "It's worse than I thought," he muttered. Tasha swallowed. "What does it say?" Matteo stood up slowly, showing her the message. "Take out the girl first. She knows too much. Then take out Matteo. Tonight. Make it loud." A cold wave rolled through her chest. "They wanted me first." "Yes," Matteo said quietly. "But why me? I'm nobody." He looked at her sharply. "That's exactly why. They think you're expendable." "Well, that's rude." "This isn't about manners, Tasha," Matteo snapped, then sighed and lowered his voice. "They targeted you because you saw something. Because you warned me. And because they think killing you will weaken me." Something flickered behind his eyes as he said it. Guilt, fury, and the tiniest spark of fear. Not fear for himself. Fear for her. Tasha stepped back, needing space to breathe. "I shouldn't be here. This is your war, not mine." Matteo followed her, his voice low and tense. "You are in it, whether you want to be or not." "No. I'm a maid. I clean. I fold towels aggressively when I'm stressed. I don't do shootouts in penthouses." "You didn't just freeze tonight," Matteo said. "You fought back. You saved yourself. You saved me. A decanter is not a weapon." "It is if you swing it like that." She threw her hands up. "So what? I get promoted." Maid turned bodyguard. Matteo stepped closer, too close, and she immediately felt heat flush up her neck, which was strictly inconvenient under the circumstances. "No," he said quietly. "You don't get promoted. You get protected." Her stomach twisted. By whom? He held her gaze, voice dropping to a tone that felt far too intimate for a room full of glass shards and dead men. "By me." Before she could respond, the elevator chimed. Both of them froze. The penthouse elevator was private. Matteo's men had access. Only his men. Matteo pulled Tasha behind him so quickly she nearly stumbled. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding. A man stepped out. Tasha recognized him instantly. Vincent Romano, Matteo's right-hand man, tall and lean with the kind of smile that could either charm a nun or terrify a criminal. He blinked at the sight of the destroyed penthouse, then lifted his hand slowly. "Before you shoot me," Vincent said calmly, "I'd like to point out that I brought donuts." Tasha blinked. Matteo did not. "Vincent," Matteo growled. "Why are you here?" Vincent nudged a box onto the nearest table. Powdered sugar spilled across the marble. "I heard gunfire from the street. Thought you might be hungry after a murder attempt. You know, carbs soothe stress." Tasha stared at him. This is the strangest night of my life. Vincent glanced at her, eyebrows raised. You okay? I almost got murdered. With bullets. And then I murdered someone with glassware. Vincent nodded, impressed. Deadly hospitality. Nice. Matteo stepped forward, deadly serious. Vincent. We were hit from the inside. Vincent's expression lost all humor. Inside. Matteo pointed to the body. Vincent crouched, studying the man's face, tattoo, and gear with trained precision. Damn, Vincent murmured. He was loyal. Or pretending to be. Matteo's voice darkened. Find out who he answered to. Vincent nodded once. On it. But, Matteo. What? Vincent pointed at Tasha. She needs to disappear. Tasha's whole body stiffened. Excuse me. Vincent raised both hands. Not like that. Not dead. Calm down. I mean, she needs to be hidden. Off the grid. Somewhere they won't look. Matteo crossed his arms. And where exactly is that? Vincent hesitated, then smirked. Your safe house. Tasha blinked. Matteo blinked. The skull tattoo on Matteo's hand looked like it blinked too. No, Matteo said sharply. Absolutely not. Vincent gave him a look of exaggerated innocence. Why not? It's remote. Secure. Bulletproof windows. Underground escape tunnels. You know, cozy. It's for emergencies, Matteo snapped. This is an emergency. Matteo opened his mouth to argue, but Vincent cut in with a raised brow. You scared to be alone with her? Matteo silenced him with a stare that could have melted steel. Tasha nearly choked. Whoa, what? No. No one is scared. I'm not scary. He's not scared. He's just controlling. Matteo glared at her next. I'm not controlling. You're giving overprotective Italian father energy. Vincent snorted. Matteo did not appreciate it. But he didn't deny it either. Instead, he ran a hand through his hair, sighed deeply, and closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, the decision had been made. Fine, he said. We leave in 20 minutes. Leave where? Tasha asked, hope and dread colliding in her chest. Matteo looked at her, the city's broken skyline reflecting in his eyes. My safe house, he said. In the woods. Out of sight. Out of reach. She swallowed hard. With you? Yes, he said, voice low. With me. Vincent smirked. This'll be fun. Matteo shot him a death glare that promised eternal suffering, then turned back to Tasha. Pack a bag, he said. For how long? She asked. His answer sent a chill down her spine. Until I find the man who ordered your death. If you'd run into a night like this, you'd want answers too. Comment, I stand for justice, if you're not siding with Ricci and the traitors planning Matteo's downfall. Only people who tolerate betrayal will stay quiet. Matteo didn't storm into the meeting. He glided in with that slow, dangerous swagger that made even armed men reconsider their life choices. His lieutenants, Dante, Russo, and Emilio, straightened like schoolboys caught cheating on a math test. Tasha watched from the hallway, hidden behind a marble pillar, her heart beating so loud she was convinced the entire Costa crime family could hear it. Matteo took his seat at the head of the table, fingers tapping lightly, every movement controlled. So, he began, voice low, we have business today. 3 pairs of eyes flickered. Tasha recognized the look immediately. It was the look of men who were planning to do something stupid and were praying the universe didn't expose them before they pulled it off. Dante cleared his throat. Boss, we were thinking, maybe you should take a lighter security detail today. You know, blend in. Matteo raised an eyebrow. If blend in meant, make it easier for us to take you out behind a dumpster, then sure. And the meeting with the Delgado buyers, Russo added. Maybe go alone. Shows strength. Strength or stupidity. Matteo smirked. Alone, huh? Behind the pillar, Tasha whispered under her breath. Don't do it. Don't you dare be that confident. Emilio leaned forward. It's all arranged. They're expecting you. Matteo's eyes sharpened. They weren't expecting him. They were expecting the chance to erase him. The room tightened with tension. Tasha watched, knowing Matteo was piecing it all together. Her note, the sudden suggestions, and the off vibes he had ignored for months. She could almost see the moment he realized he had been sleeping with vipers curled at his feet. He stood. "Actually," he said lightly, "I've changed my mind. I'll take my maid." Every man in the room froze. Dante blinked. "Your maid?" Matteo nodded casually. "Tasha. She'll accompany me today." Behind the pillar, Tasha slapped a hand over her mouth. "Excuse me. Who invited me to Mafia daycare?" The men exchanged uneasy glances. A maid wasn't part of the plan. A maid made things unpredictable. A maid had eyes, ears, and, unknown to them, a spine full of Chicago street instinct. Matteo walked out of the meeting room and stopped right in front of Tasha's hiding place. She straightened instantly, pretending she had not been eavesdropping for the last 15 minutes. "You're coming with me," he said. Tasha blinked. "I don't remember signing up for the die next to your boss company package." He leaned in, voice quiet, edged with threat and, strangely, something like trust. "You warned me. You're the only one I know who isn't playing both sides." For a second, Tasha couldn't breathe. Matteo Costa, the man who made grown men tremble, was choosing her as his only ally. A boss trusting a maid? Chicago's crime scene hadn't seen a plot twist this dramatic since a politician accidentally confessed on live TV. Tasha swallowed. "All right. I'll go." His brows lifted. "Just like that." "Well," she whispered, "if someone's going to kill you today, better I'm there to stop it and not the guys who can't even scrub wine stains off marble." A small, reluctant smirk tugged at Matteo's lip. "Let's move." As they walked toward the elevator, the lieutenants watched them, masks slipping for just a moment. Dante's jaw twitched. Russo's foot tapped nervously. Emilio's fingers drummed a frantic rhythm on his thigh. They hadn't just been exposed. They had been outplayed. Matteo pressed the elevator button, then lowered his voice. "When we get downstairs, keep your eyes open." "I always do," she murmured. "And Tasha," he added. "Yes. Stay close." The doors opened. Matteo stepped in first. Tasha followed. The doors slid shut, sealing them into a steel box headed toward danger neither fully understood yet. The moment the elevator descended, Matteo finally spoke the truth he had been holding in since she slipped that note into his palm. "I don't know why you chose to save me today," he said quietly. "But I won't forget it." Tasha's breath hitched, but before she could answer, her survival instincts kicked in. Her gaze snapped to the glowing panel above the door. The elevator wasn't going to the lobby. It was going to the basement. And only 5 people in the entire building had access to that button. 3 of them were planning to kill Matteo Costa today. Tasha felt the blood drain from her face. Matteo. He saw it the same second she did. The elevator was taking them exactly where the hit was set to happen. Betrayal wasn't waiting downstairs. It was already here. Tasha kept replaying the moment she'd slipped the note into Matteo's hand. How his eyes had hardened, how the room seemed to tilt with the weight of what she'd revealed. Now, hours later, the tension still clung to her like smoke. The Costa mansion was too quiet, too still. Matteo hadn't said a word to her since they left the hotel. He'd driven with both hands tight on the wheel, jaw clenched, thinking so loudly she could almost hear every thought rattling inside him. When they arrived, he told her to stay where he could see her, and then vanished into a back room with 2 trusted guards. But not the ones she warned him about. Tasha paced the edge of the living room rug, her nerves strung tight. Outside the tall windows, the New Jersey sky darkened into a heavy charcoal gray, storm clouds gathering over the coastline. It felt like the world itself was bracing, just like she was. Footsteps approached, steady, firm. Matteo appeared in the doorway, his expression carved from stone. His tie was undone, sleeves rolled up, and hair slightly disheveled as if he'd run his hands through it one too many times. He looked dangerous. He looked like a man who'd confirmed something he didn't want to be true. Tasha, he said quietly. Come with me. Her pulse jumped. She followed him through a hallway she hadn't seen before, deeper into the mansion. They stopped in a room she didn't expect. His private office. Not the grand one downstairs used for show, but a smaller, darker space tucked behind a locked door. A space for truth. He shut the door behind them. Tasha swallowed. Did you find something? Matteo stared at her for a long moment, searching her face with an intensity that made her fingers tingle. He crossed the room, stopped a breath away from her, and spoke in a low voice. You were right. Her stomach dropped. He continued. 2 of my men have been reporting to a rival crew for months. Quietly. Carefully. Enough that I missed it. His jaw flexed. But not today. Tasha didn't breathe. Not until he lifted a hand and brushed a loose curl from her cheek, his touch unexpectedly gentle. You saved my life. The words stunned her. He wasn't dramatic. He wasn't careless with gratitude. So hearing them made her chest tighten. I just didn't want something bad to happen to you, she whispered. His eyes darkened, not with anger but something heavier. Something she didn't dare to name. You understand, he said softly, that your warning paints a target on your back too. She knew. She'd known the second she saw the betrayal. She nodded anyway. Matteo stepped closer, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. You're under my protection now, Tasha Monroe. That means you don't go anywhere alone. You don't speak to anyone I don't know. And you stay in this house. Her breath caught. Are you locking me up? No, his gaze flicked over her, quiet and intense. I'm keeping you alive. He took another step, invading her space in a way that made her heart knock against her ribs. He wasn't touching her, but it felt like he was everywhere. And until this is handled, he said, you stay close to me. Her voice trembled before she could stop it. How close? Matteo's lips curved, not into a smile, but something warmer, darker, and more dangerous than one. Close enough, he murmured, that no one can mistake what you mean to me. The room went still. The air changed. And Tasha realized in that moment that warning him had changed more than his fate. It had changed hers, too. Tasha barely slept. Not because the guest room Matteo assigned her was anything less than luxury. Far from it. The sheets felt like warm silk, the mattress hugged her body, and the soft hum of the rain outside should have lulled her into comfort. But her mind refused to let her rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Matteo's face inches from hers and heard his voice telling her she meant something to him. That she needed to stay close. That her warning changed everything. By morning, her nerves were a tangled mess. Tasha stepped into the hallway, clutching the oversized sweater she'd borrowed from the closet. She found 2 unfamiliar guards posted near her door. They gave her a nod, respectful but firm. Replacements. Loyal ones. Matteo wasn't taking chances. She descended the stairs slowly, unsure of where she was allowed to go. Before she reached the bottom, a voice floated up from the dining room. You're awake. She froze. Matteo stood at the end of the table, sleeves rolled again, a mug of steaming coffee in one hand and a gun holster dangling carelessly from his other. The image shouldn't have made her pulse quicken, but it did. You didn't have breakfast, he added quietly. Tasha stepped in cautiously. I didn't know where anything was. You don't have to know. He set his mug down and nodded to the chef standing nearby. She eats before I do. Her cheeks warmed. She'd never had someone rearrange their whole morning around her. Not a mother, not a boyfriend, not anyone. Sit, Matteo said. She obeyed, though the chair felt too big, too soft, and too close to him. He walked around the table and placed a warm plate in front of her himself. You don't have to serve me, Tasha whispered. He leaned in slightly, voice low. I don't do anything I don't want to do. Her heart fluttered, stupid and reckless. As she ate, she watched him gather files, guns, and keys, preparing for something dangerous. Something bloody. Something he didn't want her involved in. Are you going after them? She asked carefully. He didn't answer right away. He simply studied her, eyes sharp, reading everything she wasn't saying. Finally. Yes. Fear sliced through her. Matteo, what if? He cut her off gently. Nothing's happening to me. You don't know that. He paused. Then he stepped toward her, each footfall quiet but powerful. He crouched in front of her chair, eye level with her now. Tasha, he said softly. Look at me. She did. You saved me once. I won't let you save me twice. His fingers brushed her knee. Barely a touch, but enough to ground her. Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone. My men will guard you, but I need you to promise me something. Her breath trembled. Promise what? That you'll be here when I get back. The vulnerability in his voice hit her harder than any threat ever could. She nodded slowly. Okay. I promise. Matteo rose, holstered his gun, and grabbed his coat. But before he stepped out, he paused in the doorway and looked back at her. A look that said more than either of them was allowed to say out loud. Then he left. The door shut. And all Tasha could do was sit there, heart pounding, praying her warning hadn't just saved his life once, but would save it again. If you're still hooked and want the next twist, drop a continue. The house felt emptier than ever once Matteo was gone. Tasha stayed seated at the table, fork idly resting on her plate, listening to the rain splatter against the windows. Every shadow seemed larger, every creak louder. She had a clear view of the front door and the driveway beyond, yet she couldn't stop imagining what danger Matteo had just stepped into. A soft knock at the kitchen door made her flinch. Ma'am, one of the guards said, voice low. Can I get you anything? She shook her head, forcing her hands to stop trembling. No, thank you. He gave her a small nod, then lingered a second longer than necessary. There was respect in his eyes, but also a question he dared not ask. What was she to Matteo? Once he left, Tasha exhaled and wrapped her arms around herself. She was alone, but the sense of being watched lingered. Minutes stretched into hours. The storm outside intensified, thunder rolling over the estate like a warning. And then, a soft click of the door. Her heart leapt. Was it Matteo? No, a shadow moved differently, more deliberate, more calculated. Tasha grabbed the nearest knife from the counter, her hand shaking slightly, and crept toward the sound. Her breath caught in her throat. Whoever it was, they were dangerous. A figure stepped into the kitchen light. Tasha. Relief and fear collided in equal measure. Matteo's voice, but something was off. He wasn't alone. And his expression, though calm, carried a weight that made her stomach twist. Stay behind me, he murmured, barely audible. His hand went to his side, fingers brushing the gun beneath his coat. Tasha's pulse surged. She'd promised to stay safe, but right now, safety felt like a distant memory. Matteo moved closer to the intruder, tension coiling in his stance, eyes sharp, lips set in that dangerous line she knew all too well. The storm raged outside. Inside, another kind of storm had just begun. Want to see how Matteo handles the threat and what happens to Tasha? Type continue. The intruder froze, just long enough for Matteo to assess the situation. His eyes, sharp as knives, scanned every detail. Hand positions, stance, even the way the man's breath hitched. Tasha, he whispered, his voice steady and low. Behind me. Now. She obeyed instinctively, stepping back and pressing herself against the counter. Knife still in hand, but useless if he made a move too fast. The man finally spoke, voice rough and clipped. I'm just delivering a message. Matteo's laugh was dark, almost humorless. A message? From whom? And why sneak in like a coward? The intruder's eyes darted, but he didn't respond. Matteo's patience was legendary, but not endless. He stepped forward, gun now in hand, careful but ready. Answer me, Matteo said, voice low, dangerous. Or I swear, you won't leave this house alive. Tasha's stomach twisted. She hated this part, watching the man she cared for step into danger, knowing she could do nothing but pray. Suddenly, the intruder moved. Fast. Too fast. Matteo reacted instantly, spinning, gun up, but the man was skilled. He was no amateur. They clashed in a controlled chaos, each strike precise and measured but lethal in intent. Tasha froze, heart hammering, watching her promise to stay safe unravel with every second. Then, in the heat of the struggle, Matteo's hand brushed her shoulder. Just a moment, but it anchored her and reminded her he was still alive. His eyes met hers briefly, a silent reassurance, and then he was gone from her sight, absorbed in the fight. A shot rang out. Tasha ducked instinctively, pressing herself to the floor. Silence followed. Too heavy, too sudden. Then Matteo emerged, chest heaving, gun lowered. The intruder lay unconscious at his feet. His gaze immediately found hers. Relief flickered in his eyes. And something else, something deeper. "You okay?" he asked, voice rough but soft in a way that made her pulse race. I'm fine," she whispered, breathless. He stepped closer, hand brushing her hair back. "You were perfect," he said. "Exactly where you needed to be." Her heart skipped. "Perfect." He gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Stay here. Don't move. I'll handle the rest." And just like that, he disappeared again, leaving Tasha in a quiet house, with the storm still raging outside, but with the realization that Matteo would always fight for her, no matter the cost. The danger isn't over. Want the next shocking twist and see what happens next? Type continue. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but the estate still smelled of damp earth and tension. Tasha stayed near the staircase, eyes darting toward the shadows where Matteo had disappeared moments ago. Her hands were trembling, but not from fear alone. Her pulse still raced from the fight, from the closeness of danger, and from the way Matteo had looked at her. A soft click of the front door announced Matteo's return. He stepped inside, coat damp, hair slightly mussed, but his presence was as commanding as ever. His eyes immediately found hers, scanning, assessing, and in that moment, she felt like the only person in the world. "Everything's secure," he said, voice low, carrying the remnants of adrenaline. "You stayed safe." Tasha nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes. Thanks to you." He shook his head, a small, almost private smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "No. Thanks to you. You kept calm. You followed my instructions." Her cheeks warmed, but the relief was short-lived. Matteo's gaze hardened slightly, as if he could already see the next threat before it appeared. He walked past her, placing a hand briefly on the back of her chair, a touch that lingered far longer than necessary. "Stay here. I'll be back soon. Don't open the door for anyone, Tasha. Promise me." "I promise," she whispered, voice barely audible. He paused at the door, eyes locking with hers once more. That look, it was loaded, filled with warning, care, and something she couldn't yet name. Then he left. Tasha exhaled slowly, sinking into the chair. Her heart was still racing, and her thoughts were a whirlwind. Matteo had put himself in danger again, and she had been powerless. But part of her was drawn to the danger, drawn to him. The silence of the house pressed in, but Tasha wasn't alone for long. A soft knock sounded at the side door. Her hand instinctively went to the knife she kept nearby. She moved to the door cautiously. A familiar, calm voice called from the other side. "Tasha, it's me. I brought something you need to see." Her pulse jumped. She knew that voice, that tone, and she knew, without a doubt, whatever he had brought would pull her deeper into Matteo's world. She opened the door, and what she saw made her stomach twist. Danger and secrets collide. Want the next shocking twist? Drop a continue to see what Tasha discovers next. Tasha's eyes widened. Matteo stood on the doorstep, holding a sleek black briefcase. His expression was unreadable, but the intensity in his eyes told her this was serious. "Matteo, what is it?" she asked, taking a cautious step closer. He handed her the briefcase without a word. His fingers brushed hers, a fleeting touch that sent a shiver up her spine. "Open it," he said finally. Tasha hesitated. Her hands trembled as she unclasped the locks. Inside, neatly organized, were files, photographs, and small gadgets she didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. Danger wasn't just outside the estate anymore. It was closer, smarter, and personal. "These are names, locations, plans," Matteo explained, voice low, almost a growl. They've been tracking me. They know I'm protecting you now. Her stomach twisted. They know about me. He nodded. I warned them once. If they try anything, they'll learn why I don't forgive mistakes. Tasha's mind raced. She had always known Mateo's world was dangerous, but seeing it laid out like this, seeing how deeply she was now entangled, made it real. And you, she started, voice barely above a whisper. You put yourself in danger for me. Mateo's jaw tightened. You saved me once, Tasha. I won't let anyone hurt you. I'll fight anyone who tries. Her chest tightened, emotions twisting between fear, admiration, and something she couldn't name. Something that was growing stronger with every glance, every word, every touch. You'll stay here, he said, closing the briefcase with a snap. Don't leave. Don't answer the door. Let my men handle the rest. Do you understand? I understand, she whispered. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, the intensity in his gaze pinning her in place. And remember, I'll always come back for you. Then he turned and vanished into the shadows of the estate once more, leaving Tasha clutching the briefcase and her rapidly beating heart. She knew one thing for certain. There was no turning back now. Mateo's world had become her world, whether she was ready or not. Secrets, danger, and desire are about to collide. Want the next shocking twist? Drop a continue to see what happens next. The storm had passed, but the weight in the air didn't lift. Tasha sat on the edge of the bed, the briefcase open before her. Papers, photos, and small, unfamiliar gadgets lay spread across the comforter. She tried to absorb every detail, knowing that understanding Mateo's world was no longer optional. It was survival. Her phone buzzed. A single message, no sender name. We know who you are. Stay alone, or there will be consequences. Tasha's hands went cold. The threat was real, immediate, and terrifying. She looked at the briefcase, then at the window. Mateo had said he would protect her. But what if this time he couldn't get to her fast enough? A knock at the door made her jump. Ma'am, everything's secure, said one of Mateo's guards, stepping in. But you should stay inside. Alone. She nodded, grateful for their presence, but unease gnawed at her. Every shadow seemed longer, every sound sharper. Hours passed. The rain began again, tapping softly against the windows, but Tasha couldn't relax. Then Mateo returned. His coat was damp, his hair mussed, and there was a tension in his jaw she hadn't seen before. Tasha, he said, voice low, eyes dark with warning. They're moving faster than I expected. Her stomach twisted. What do you mean? They know you're important to me now. They'll use you to get to me if they can. Fear and adrenaline spiked inside her chest. Then, what do we do? Mateo stepped closer, lowering his voice, a dangerous softness in his tone. You stay. You wait. You trust me. No matter what happens outside this room, you do not leave. Do you understand? I understand, she whispered, heart pounding. He reached out, fingers brushing hers briefly, the simple contact grounding her while sending sparks racing through her. Good, he said. Because I won't forgive any harm coming to you. Not from them. Not from anyone. Tasha's breath caught, her chest tight. His promise carried more than protection. It carried something unspoken, something that drew her to him in ways she couldn't yet name. Mateo pulled back slightly, eyes still locked on hers. Rest now. I'll handle the storm. She nodded, heart still racing, knowing the danger outside was growing, and knowing the pull between them was just as dangerous. Night had fallen, and the estate was wrapped in darkness, save for the dim glow of lamps in the main hall. Tasha sat on the couch, the briefcase closed beside her. Her fingers traced the edges, a mix of fear and fascination coursing through her. Every name, every photo, every detail inside had made one thing terrifyingly clear. Mateo's enemies were close, organized, and ruthless. A sudden movement near the window made her flinch. She grabbed the nearest object, a heavy candlestick, and crept forward, muscles tense, ears straining. Tasha! Mateo's voice came from the shadows. She jumped. then exhaled in relief as he stepped into the dim light. His coat was damp, sleeves rolled, and eyes sharp and alert. "I need you to listen carefully." She nodded, gripping the candlestick tighter. "They're coming tonight," he said. His voice was low, almost a growl. "Not just anyone, they've sent their best. They know you're here, and they want leverage." Tasha's stomach twisted. "Leverage? Me?" He nodded. "Exactly. That's why you stay inside. You don't answer the door, and you don't move from this spot. My men and I will handle the rest." Her pulse surged. Fear and adrenaline collided with something deeper. A pull toward him she couldn't ignore. And if something goes wrong? His gaze softened, just a fraction, but it was enough to make her heart flutter. "Then I'll make sure it doesn't. I'll always come back to you." Tasha's breath caught. Words weren't enough. Look, touch, presence. They carried a weight she couldn't deny. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the driveway. The storm outside had masked their approach, but now it was clear. The enemy was here. Mateo's hands moved on instinct, gun raised, movements precise, lethal. "Stay down," he commanded. Tasha sank behind the couch, heart pounding, watching him step into the hall, every motion controlled, every breath deliberate. She wanted to run to him, to be near him, but the fear in her chest reminded her of his warning. And then, from the shadows of the doorway, a figure lunged forward. Fast, calculated, and deadly. Mateo reacted instantly, and the sound of a struggle filled the house. Metal against metal, fists against flesh, the chaos that always seemed to follow him. Tasha clutched the briefcase to her chest, her body trembling, knowing that this night would change everything, and that she was now more entwined in his dangerous world than ever. The estate was in chaos. Shouts, crashes, and the sharp report of gunfire echoed through the halls. Tasha stayed low behind the couch, clutching the briefcase to her chest like a lifeline. Her hands were slick with sweat, and her heart pounded as if it would burst through her ribs. From her hiding spot, she saw Mateo move with lethal precision. Every strike, every step, every breath was calculated. He was a predator in his element, and yet every glance toward her carried a promise. She was his, and he would protect her. The intruder came at him again, fast and reckless. Mateo sidestepped, twisting his arm, and disarmed the man in one swift motion. Tasha's breath caught at the violence. Controlled, terrifying, and intoxicating all at once. He didn't notice her gaze linger. His focus was absolute. But the protective tension between them hung in the air, thick and electric. A crash sounded closer. Tasha flinched as a vase shattered nearby. Dust and splinters filled the air, and she coughed, drawing Mateo's attention. "Tasha," he barked. Her heart slammed. "I'm down," he ordered, stepping in front of her instinctively. The brush of his coat against her arm sent shivers through her. She ducked lower, heart racing, but part of her wanted to reach out, to touch him, to feel the reassurance of his presence. But the danger was real, immediate, and deadly. Moments stretched into a tense eternity. Then silence fell. Mateo's voice came again, softer this time, still sharp with authority. "Stay here. I'll handle the rest." Tasha's breath trembled as he disappeared into the shadows, every step echoing like a promise she both feared and craved. She gripped the briefcase tighter, realizing how completely her world had changed. She was no longer an outsider, and Mateo's life, and hers, was now inseparable. Her pulse settled only slightly as she whispered to herself, almost a prayer. "Come back to me." The night air was thick with tension as Mateo moved through the estate, every sense alert. He could hear them. Footsteps, whispers, and the faintest shuffle of weapons. They had come for him, for Tasha, and for the leverage she represented. Tasha stayed behind the couch, heart hammering, clutching the briefcase. She could hear everything, the scuffle in the hall, the sharp commands, and the metallic clang of fists and guns. Every second stretched, each one a test of patience and terror. Suddenly, a figure lunged at Mateo from the shadows. He reacted instantly, sidestepping, delivering a swift, controlled strike that sent the intruder sprawling. Another came from the opposite direction, but Mateo's precision never wavered. "Tasha, stay low." His voice cut through the chaos, fierce and commanding. Her hands gripped the briefcase so tightly it threatened to buckle. She wanted to run to him, to reach out, to be near him, but the fear was paralyzing. The fight intensified, blows landing with brutal clarity. Mateo's world was one of danger, but she realized something in that moment. He fought not just for survival but for her. Then a pause. Silence. Mateo emerged from the shadows, victorious, chest heaving, but eyes immediately finding hers. Relief, fierce and raw, flickered in his gaze. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, magnetic. "Tasha," he said, voice low and rough, yet softer than she had ever heard. "Are you okay?" I'm fine," she whispered, tears of adrenaline and fear brimming. He reached out, fingers brushing her cheek, wiping away an errant strand of hair. His touch grounded her, sent shivers through her, and made her pulse stutter. "You were perfect," he said. "Exactly where you needed to be." Her chest tightened. I was scared," she admitted. "Good," he murmured, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "I want you scared of danger, not of me." Her lips trembled into a small, uncertain smile. Fear still lingered, but it was now entwined with something else. Trust, desire, and the undeniable pull between them. Mateo leaned closer, eyes dark and intent. "I told you, Tasha. I'll always come back to you." This time she didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, closing the distance between them, letting herself be held. Their breaths mingled, hearts beating in sync, the storm outside nothing compared to the one inside. The danger had passed, for now, but the bond forged in the crucible of fear and adrenaline was unbreakable. Mateo's world was hers now, and she would face it, side by side with him. The estate was quiet now. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, scattering across polished floors that had borne witness to nights of danger and chaos. Tasha moved through the rooms, briefcase closed, files tucked away. For the first time in weeks, she felt a measure of calm. Not the kind that comes from ignorance, but the kind that comes from survival, from knowing she had faced the storm and emerged intact. Mateo appeared in the doorway, coat draped over his arm, sleeves rolled casually. He looked at her, eyes soft but alert, the predator and protector in perfect balance. "You rested?" he asked, voice low. Tasha nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "As much as I could." He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You were incredible. I don't know if you realize it, but you kept yourself and me alive." Her chest tightened, not just from pride, but from the closeness and the intensity of him. "I only did what you told me, mostly," she said, teasing lightly, though her voice wavered. Mateo's lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. "Mostly, huh? I'll take it." There was a quiet pause, a moment suspended between them. No threats, no chaos, just the unspoken truth. Whatever came next, they faced it together. He reached out, fingers brushing hers, lingering. "Tasha, I meant it. I'll always come back to you." Her pulse fluttered. "And I'll always be here," she whispered. The tension between them had softened, replaced by a bond forged in danger, respect, and something deeper. Something neither could fully name but both understood. Outside, the world went on, oblivious to the battles fought within these walls. But inside they had found something far rarer than safety. Trust, connection, and the promise of tomorrow. Mateo leaned closer, resting a hand lightly on her waist. "Ready to face the next storm?" Tasha smiled, finally letting herself relax. "Always with you." For the first time in weeks, the estate felt like home, not just a fortress of danger, but a place where two people had found each other in the chaos, and where, whatever came next, they would face it together. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazy and intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out.